Homer's Odyssey, it's one of the oldest stories we have, right? But it's so much more than just a big adventure. Deep down, it's this incredibly brutal, really complex look at a dilemma we still struggle with today. And it all boils down to one powerful question. Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? It's right there at the heart of the whole epic. And the thing is, Homer doesn't just hand us an easy answer. But if we dig into how the poem itself wrestles with this, we get well, a really fascinating look at the very nature of right and wrong. Okay, so let's set the scene. You've got our hero, Odysseus. He's finally coming home to Ithaca after 20 years. I mean, 20 years away fighting a war and then getting lost at sea. But the home he comes back to, it's not the one he remembers. He walks in to find his palace completely overrun. We're talking more than 100 arrogant suitors trying to marry his wife Penelope so they can steal his throne. They're just eating all his food, drinking all his wine, and oh yeah, they're plotting to kill his son. So what does he do? Well, his response is basically one of the most legendary bloodbaths in literature. But it brings us right back to that big question. Is it justice? Now, to even start to answer that, you have to get your head around the ancient Greek idea of divine justice. See, in Homer's world, the gods aren't just sitting up on Olympus eating popcorn and watching the show. No. They are active referees. They're in the game. And the number one rule, the big one, is something called xenia, the sacred law of hospitality. And listen, this was way more than just, being a good host. If you abused hospitality, you were offending Zeus himself, the king of the gods. So these suitors, they are not just being jerks, they are committing a cosmic crime. And this chart, it just lays out the case against them so perfectly. On one side, you've got their crimes, greed, arrogance, disrespecting the gods. These aren't just bad personality traits, right? These are violations of divine law. And on the other side, the punishment. The fact that they die during a feast, that's no accident. It's a divinely orchestrated punishment that fits the crime perfectly. So from this angle, Odysseus isn't just acting on his own. He's basically an instrument of the gods' will. So here's the key takeaway. From the gods' point of view, the slaughter of all those suitors, that's not murder. It's the universe balancing the scales. It's about restoring a kind of cosmic order that the suitors completely shattered. But that's only one side of the coin. Because see, while the gods might be all about cosmic balance, for Odysseus, this is personal. And this, right here, is where everything starts to get a little blurry. It all starts with something that feels, pretty justified. Antinous, the main bad guy, he's the first to go. Makes sense. But then, it just escalates. Odysseus completely refuses to show any mercy. And his son, Telemachus, he doesn't just kill the maids who were disloyal. He hangs them in a way that Homer himself describes as a most pitiable end. And from there, it just gets straight up grotesque, with the torture and mutilation of this one goat herd, Melanthius. And this is such a brilliant way to show that shift, right? Antinous' death feels like poetic justice. The guy's a glutton, so he dies with food and wine literally spilling from his mouth. The punishment fits the crime. It feels right. But what happens to Melanthius? That serves no higher purpose at all. That is just pure, vicious cruelty. It's only about inflicting as much pain as humanly possible. So this is the moment where, as you're reading, you have to stop and ask yourself, have we crossed a line here? Has this whole divine mission to restore order been totally hijacked by one man's really brutal desire for personal revenge? Homer is way too good a storyteller to just give us a simple yes or no. Instead, he drops us right in the middle of this moral gray zone. And it creates this tension that, believe it or not, scholars are still debating. Okay, so first we've got to think about the historical context. A classicist named Peter Jones makes a really important point about this. For the ancient Greeks listening to this story, revenge wasn't a bad thing. It was a right. It was a duty. It was how a hero got his honor back. So from their point of view, Odysseus was 100% in the right. But then, the same scholar points out this other fascinating thing. Homer goes out of his way to describe the maids' deaths with pity. He actually wants us to feel a pang of sympathy. He's making sure we see the horrific human cost of all this, even if technically you could argue it's justice. And that, right there, is the genius of Homer. He doesn't let you off the hook. He makes you hold two totally conflicting ideas in your head at the same time. On one hand, you get why it's happening, but on the other, you're just horrified by how it's happening. You can recognize the justice of it all, but you still pull back from the sheer cruelty. And the poem's big finale really hammers this point home. Because see, in the human world, revenge is never the end of the story. It just starts a cycle. So the very next morning after the big slaughter, guess who shows up? The fathers and brothers of all the dead suitors. And they are armed, they are furious, and they want revenge for their sons. So one act of vengeance just kicked off another one. And that's what happens with human justice, right? It just becomes this endless, destructive cycle of violence. And this is where, as the scholar Jasper Griffin puts it, the gods have to get involved again. Because human vengeance, if you just let it run wild, is chaotic. It's limitless. It has to be brought back under control by some higher power to put that cosmic order back in place. And that's precisely what we see happen. Odysseus, he's still just consumed by rage, and he kills the leader of the revenge party. He's ready to wipe out all the rest of them. But right as he charges forward, the goddess Athena appears and tells him, stop. And when he doesn't listen right away, Zeus himself throws a thunderbolt down from the sky right between the two armies, physically forcing them to stop the fight. And this is maybe the poem's final and kind of chilling statement on the whole thing. Left to our own devices, we just can't stop it. Once that human rage is unleashed, it just burns and burns until there's nothing left. In Homer's world, the only way to break that cycle is for a god to step in. Which leaves us with a pretty haunting question, one that's just as real for us today as it was 3,000 years ago. In a world where we don't have gods throwing thunderbolts to stop us, can we end the cycle on our own?